Hi everyone. Please let me know if you can hear me and if you can see me, and that'll be amazing. So, I always hate the lag that comes in because it takes me a couple of seconds to see myself, and then it's weird talking to yourself, trying to keep the conversation going. But hi everyone, what's up? I can see myself. I don't know if I'm audible though. So, well, yeah. Welcome to a book a month stream. This is the last A Book a Month session for 2021. And Aditya is here. Hi Aditya, how are you? I'm doing well. Hi Hussein. Hi Devansh. Well, thank you for confirming. Hi Firas. Firas. I hope that's the correct pronunciation. Guys, do like the stream as you're joining it because the more people like the stream, the more it gets recommended. But I'm a little I'm a little overwhelmed right now because we started with a book. We started with Submarine at the beginning of 2021 in January. We had the author of Submarine, Jordan Thorne, with us. Then we continued. We started with one book a month, and now we've read almost, if not 14, at least 12 books, I'm assuming. Most of us have, right? And I'm just so happy we read as a community. We read about 14 books together this year. I mean, those were my intentions. I don't know if you guys did the homework or not, but it's nice, and we have major plans for 2022 as well. If in case you guys are interested, that is. If you're not, then probably I'll be doing the homework myself. But Akshay is here. Hi Akshay, how are you? I've been fine, Hussein. How are you doing? Hi Prapti, hi Anya, hi Sakshi, hi Tarun, hi Nishant, hi Venkatesh, hi Shivraj. Yo. Guys, do like the stream because the more you like the stream, the more it gets recommended to other people. And we picked up two books for the month of December, right? The Little Prince and The Whale Suite. And I don't know how many of you were regular throughout 2021, but do share your favorite A Book a Month books with me, like 2021 may which one did you like the best. And yeah, people are still joining. Hey, that's nice. Do like the stream, guys. Hi Ayush, hi Truthful Liar. Kasha Singh, please like the stream. Yeah, what was your favorite book, guys, for the entirety of 2021? Like, which pick did you like the best out of all the 14 books that we picked up in 2021 for A Book a Month with Vaani? Okay, we've got Feynman. I'm not even sure how to pronounce him. If you guys saw my review, A Book a Month ranking 2021K books, it wasn't at the top. I think the book that reached the book that I ranked at number 1 was The Whale Suite, which is the December pick for 2021. And I do not know if if that still convinced you. I hope it did. Ranking it number 1 convinced you to pick it up. But in case you guys do not follow us on Instagram, we also had a core team retreat recently. And I went on and on about The Whale Suite to everyone. And I was very happy that I converted at least one individual because when everyone went back, somebody actually bought it and sent me a screenshot of them reading it on Kindle. And I was like, yes, okay, this is a good news. Hey, Pokhraj is here. Hi, Pokhraj. How are you? Arjun is also here. Pokhraj. I was busy dealing with him, so I couldn't read anything. That's all right. You've got the entire 2022, right? And I'm thinking we'll pick up 2 books each month. I think we've trained ourselves enough in 2021, and we can perhaps deal with 2 books in a month. But there were 2 books for the December month. One of them was The Whale Suite, of course, but the other one was The Little Prince, which I think we've made a compulsory. We've made it a part of the Chalchitra book club syllabus. If you want to be a part of the streams or whatnot, The Little Prince must be something you have read already. Pokraj. Well, I hope it was helpful though. In case you don't follow us on Instagram, do follow us. And then you would have known that we already have sweatshirts and other things as well. Hey, Akshay is also here. Black sweatshirts. Yeah, we will take out the black hoodies as well. I have so much on my TV. I do as well. I think I'm going to make a video on all the books that I plan to read in 2022. And perhaps at the end of 2022, we can review it. Which is actually, as I speak it, I realize it's a terrible decision. But, well, yeah. Hey, Naira, how are you? We should have a 3 a month. Only we aim for stars will reach. Oh, God. I'm still reading The Whale Suite. I started from 22nd because that's when I joined. Hey, Aarti, I hope you are. So I just want to, before we get into the discussion of The Little Prince, I just want to tell you that there is a biography of Agha Shahid Ali that exists. It's called A Map of Longings, and it has been written by Manan Kapoor, and he is going to join us today for our discussion. And post that, I will also be revealing the book for the month of January 2022, and perhaps a few plans also. But let me know what your favorite book was from the A Book a Month with Vaani for 2021. And hey, someone just said, hey Sandeep, how are you? I hope you're doing well. I'm so glad you liked On Earth We Are Briefly Gorgeous. And I'll just, how many of you were reading The Little Prince? Okay, a lot of people actually reached out to me telling me that they are loving The Little Prince. And I do not understand why all the previous streams that I've done on The Little Prince have started working now. And then I realized, oh, we are also reading The Little Prince for December month, which is very irresponsible of me, but I'm so glad people are liking this book. So in case you guys, in case you still haven't read The Little Prince, I will tell you my reasons for liking the book. Of course, the back cover of one of the copies that I own says that every grown-up was once a child. All grown-ups were once children, but only few of them remember it. And as I market it on the channel, and as a lot of people market it around their while recommending this book, it's a children's book for grown-ups. And I love this book, partly because of the dedication as well. The dedication is, so the author dedicates it to Leon Worth, who is his friend, and he says, I ask the indulgence of children who may read this book for dedicating it to a grown-up. I have a serious reason. He's the best friend I have in the world. I have another reason. This grown-up understands everything, even books about children. I have a third reason. He lives in France where he's hungry and cold. He needs cheering up. If all these reasons are not enough, I will dedicate the book to the child from whom this grown-up grew. All grown-ups were once children, although few of them remember it. And so I correct my dedication to Leon Worth when he was a little boy. And I remember reading it out to Ratna Pataksha ma'am. And to be honest, I was nervous because I did not realize how long the dedication is. But she was so happy, and that's like a validation that I take from 2021 into 2022 with me. But yeah, so in case you guys haven't picked up The Little Prince already, do read it. I'm pretty much convinced 90% of us in the community have already read the Little Prince. But, well, that's that. Coming to The Whale Suite, which is the next read. Also, guys, can you just confirm once how many of you have read The Little Prince? And my next question is, how many of you picked up The Whale Suite? I was genuinely so nervous the entire December because a lot of people were reaching out to me for the first time about with inquiries about different parts of The Whale Suite. But I was so nervous, like, are people even reading it? Because there were so many people telling me, we didn't pick up The Whale Suite because it's poetry and poetry intimidates us. But I think, and I could be wrong and people can correct me, but I think Agha Shahid Ali is someone who, I mean, you can start with poetry from any place, but I think he's a beautiful way to His writings are almost the perfect gateway to poetry. Pokraj, the fact that you didn't spontaneously compose. You know what? She had entered the Zoom room and we had to let her in. Like, you admit and you do not, like, whatever. And Weber was there, and I was like, let's just not admit her, because I was shit scared for some time. But then it all went fine. She was really nice. But that's a story for later. But anyway, the Whale Suite. So coming to Agha Shahid, I think, and this is something I've just picked up from everywhere. So it's not something. This is my opinion, but it's also something that I picked up because a lot of people say this. But the more you read Agha Shahid, the more you realize it. The way he talks about grief and loneliness and despair, I don't think I've seen anyone do that. If not better, as good as him. I don't know what I just said. But the Whale Suite collects most of his works, and in case, and I learned this recently, that a lot of CBSE kids, I think, please correct me if I'm wrong, you guys had the postcard from Kashmir in your syllabus. So, well, there's that. Hindol told me that. And recently, when guys do like the stream, the more you like the stream, the more it gets recommended to people around you. But hey, yay, nice. The Little Prince has my heart. Nice. Shan Oji, I wonder that I'm skipping year-end party for this life. Hey, this is nice. Skipping the year-end party for us. That's absolutely wonderful, Shan. Thank you so much for considering us important enough. But I also want to discuss this one before our guest comes in. There's this, we were traveling, of course, recently, and I kept on going back to this particular poem, which is called Beyond the Ashraens. What have you known of loss that makes you different from the other men? I think it's Gilgamesh, but my pronunciation is out of this world, as we've figured it out by now. But the name of the poem is called Beyond the Ashraens, and here the speaker is actually promising that he will never again be exiled from his lover's arms. So this is how it goes. It's a pretty small poem, so if you guys could just... I think the ending of this piece is one of the most beautiful ones. But anyways, hey, Ojas says this is my first live chat. Hey, nice, Ojas. Thank you for trying it out in my stream. But yes, this is how it goes. When the desert refused my history, refused to acknowledge that I had lived there with you among a vanished tribe 2,000-3,000 years ago, you parted the dawn rain, its thickest monsoon curtains, and beckoned me to the northern canyons. There, among the red rocks, you lived alone. I had still not learned the style of nomads, to walk between the raindrops to keep dry. Wet and cold, I spoke like a poor man without irony. You showed me the relics of our former life, proof that we'd at last found each other. But in your arms I felt singled out for loss. When you lit the fire and poured the wine, I'm going, I murmured. Repeatedly, going where no one has been and no one will be. Will you come with me? You took my hand and we walked through the streets of an emptied world, vulnerable to our suddenly bare history in which I was, but you said, won't again be. Singled out for loss in your arms, won't ever again be exiled, never again from your arms. And I read this on our way to the place we were going, and I kept on repeating this in my head. But well, there's that. Now, before I welcome the guest, Manan Kapoor has written a biography of Agha Shahid. He writes about the life and works of Agha Shahid in this beautiful book, Map of Longings. And I reached out to him a few days ago on Instagram, and he was so nice to oblige us with his time. And well, I'm just very excited for this, but I'll just be entering him. In case you guys have any doubts or any questions as well about Agha Shahid Ali, I think this is the right person to ask them, and just feel free to ask him all your doubts that you had while reading the Whale Suite. And I'll just let him in, and he's here. And guys, do like the stream, because the more you like the stream, the more it gets recommended to people. But yes, I'm just admitting Manan Kapoor. Hi Manan, how are you?
Hello, Vaani. I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine as well. So, can you hear me?
Hello. Yeah.
Cool. How are you?
Hi. I'm good. How are you?
I am fine as well. We were just talking about, so as I told you, we picked up the Whale Suite for the month of December, and we are really looking forward to discussing a few poems with you, perhaps your favorite ones. But before I get into this, I just wanted to understand, like, what made you, how did you discover Agha Shahid Ali, and what drew you to his works?
So I started reading Shahid Poetry around the age of
I'm so sorry to
15,
cut you
right?
off, Manan, but I think I can't hear you properly. The
Is it
audio is getting cut
audible?
in between. Yeah.
So now?
Can you just speak a
So,
sentence? Yeah, I think it's better.
um, first, thank you
Okay,
for
no, no, no. Your audio is getting cut again and again. I'm really sorry.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, I think it's better.
All right. Okay. So first of all, thank you for inviting me to your live stream. And get back to your question, I think I started reading Shahid's poetry when I was 15 or 16. So I
Okay.
was still quite young, and my mom introduced me to his poems. And so that's when I really started reading Shahid. And naturally, it was his poems like Cremation or A Rehearsal of Loss, which really spoke to me at that age. But eventually, I found about the Country Without a Post Office. And so one goes through that collection, falls in love with it, and eventually like reaches the canzones, the ghazals, the this, the that, and somewhere along the way, I started reading about the poet, and yeah, I think after that, it was just a really long process of just figuring out. I mean, the small details. Why did he write this poem? Why did he choose to use like certain words, certain phrases, or at times it was his approach. So I mean, I think it was a very fun and interesting process to write the biography of a poet because you're not only sort of getting to know the life behind the works, but also how the life sort of interacted with the works and what were the poetic concerns and why did he sort of try to explore some of them. So, yeah, that was the process. And
When you were researching, was there also anything that surprised you?
I mean, at the very beginning, I had imagined Shahid to be a completely different person. Poets are usually very serious, except Shahid was extremely witty and he was always cracking jokes. And
Yeah.
I think that comes through in a lot of his poems, especially in his collection, Walk Through the Yellow Pages, the
Yeah.
light verse. And yeah, so that was, I think, one of I mean, no matter what stage I was in, even when I was writing the book, even when I was editing the book, and even now when I sort of talk about Shahid, it's one of the few things that, really like, I find it very interesting that he could be so serious and so poignant, but at the same time, as a person, he was so, full of joy and life. So yeah, that was, yeah.
Nice. Is there also, if you would have to recommend someone who's picking up, see, a lot of people who come to me who've read Agha Shahid Ali, they only know about his work, The Country Without a Post Office. What would you
Right.
recommend them to pick up next, or what would you recommend people to start with?
To start with, I think the Half Inch Himalayas is one of the best collections because it provides you this sort of like passage into the world of Agha Shahid Ali and his concerns. But I think his best collection would, for me at least, would be Rooms Are Never Finished.
Ah,
his final collection. That's really where I think he develops himself as a poet, and he's experimenting with all these different forms, and it's just a beautiful way. And but I think this collection, the Whale Suite, has been arranged in a certain way, in a certain order. So I think the best approach would be to pick it up and start reading from page one and read towards the end. I think that's I think the ideal way to sort of approach Agha Shahid Ali, because you also see a poet grow. Some of the concerns that he had when he was young, they dilute over time. Some of them sharpen. So I think you get to see all of that. So I think that would be the best way to, I think, approach Shahid and his poetry. Yeah.
I kind of picked up from in between. I just went randomly. But okay. What's your favorite work? Like, what are your favorite works? Some of
Uh,
them, if you could
his
just name.
favorite work for me would have to be his canzones. So all
Okay.
three of them. So the first one was after an August wedding in Lahore,
Yeah.
in which he talks about Kashmir, and that was the first canzone that he ever wrote. The second would be Lennox Hill, which he wrote right after his mother's death. Well, I mean, a year after his mother's death, but yeah, that. And his final poem, The Veiled Suite, after which the collection is named. But because that's where I think Shahid really like sort of like tells the informed reader about his concerns about, and he packs so much in these 65 lines, and it's a really tough form to write in. So as you might have read in the book, the poet Anthony Hecht had once said that Dante had only managed to write one canzone, and Shahid, at the age of 50, 52, had written three. So, it was a big feat to have written three canzones. It's one of the toughest forms, and to do it so with such grace, and I mean, all that which comes through from these poems, it's really something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh, You were just talking about Canzon, and I just received a DM this morning because I was talking about we are going to discuss Agha Shahid Ali tonight, and someone
right.
just messaged me, "How do you understand poetry?" And you won't believe me, or maybe you might, but for the past few streams, this is one of the most frequent questions. How do you understand poetry? Because I just realized when we picked up a book a month, and we picked up the Whale Suite, a lot of people were intimidated by the book, and even if they wanted to, they did not pick up the book because they thought it's poetry and they won't understand it.
Right.
And the style just intimidated them. So, what would your
Right.
recommendation be if someone wants to start reading poetry? How do they get into it?
Mm, so there's no trick really. I mean, I got into poetry because I grew up in a house where poetry was recited all the time. So for
Yeah.
me, it was something I just recognized and eventually just started reading. And but for a lot of people, they discover poetry through various ways and through various poets. And I think there's really no trick. But the poet W.S. Merwin, in one of his interviews, he said something like, "You don't read poetry. You start by reading poems. So you don't have to read like 20 poems a day or anything of that sort, or an entire collection in one sitting to really understand poems. But I think primarily focus by starting to read a poem a day. I think that's the best approach that one can take, and I think eventually you'll start um, recognizing the line breaks, the this, that, and grow as a reader. I think that's the way to go about it, because there's really no trick or a formula to sort of get someone into poetry, whether they like. I mean, if they're either interested or not. I mean, there's no question of it being difficult. And while I think Shahid is one of the toughest poets from the subcontinent. So it can be intimidating, as you said, at times to approach some of the canzones and other poems. But at the same time, he has these poems which he called crowd pleasers. These were the poems that he would recite at all the readings to charm the audience. So a poem like Cremation, and they're really simple. So there's not a lot that a lot of effort that one has to do to start reading poetry, but yeah, one has to start somewhere, and and eventually one grows. It's a matter of keeping at it, and yeah, make sure that you read one poem a day. Yeah.
Nice. You were also, before we got on the call, you were also talking about the English Agha Shahid Ali uses. And I just
Right.
wanted you to just talk about it a little more.
Yeah. So, I mean, I find that the most, I mean, that's for me at least, the most interesting thing about Shahid. And the most interesting thing that I sort of like think I've been able to map it, but I don't know. But one of the most interesting things that I wanted to sort of talk about in the book was his use of English. Because, I mean, as a reader of poetry, one knows that, you know, to some extent, poetry in India was uh, and especially poetry in English was a little stilted in the 60s, 70s, and there wasn't an element of Indianness in it. So Shahid then, I think, when he moves to the US, he recognizes that no one there knows about Faiz, Faiz
Right.
Ahmed Faiz, and so he starts translating Faiz, and he realizes how to sort of work the Urdu into English, and while he's doing it, he's also writing the poems from half inch Himalayas. So I think that was very interesting because you see words like dew starched, these prepositional phrases which often occur in Urdu, but not so much in English or the other languages. But so the way he sort of like recreated and rebuilt English to sort of like explore his concerns as a South Asian, as someone from Kashmir. I think that was very interesting for me to sort of map. And you can see the trajectory of that, his English growing, and how easy it becomes for him when he's writing a poem like "Snow on the Desert." I think that's one of his most brilliant free verse poems, and yeah, that's pretty much about it. But there's a lot more in the book, and there a lot more examples. But
Was there also a moment that made you perhaps emotional when you were like doing your research, writing the book?
yeah, a lot of the interviews, and they went on for hours, right? So if I'm speaking to one of his friends or anyone he knew, his colleagues, his students, and because I did some of the research I conducted online because of the pandemic, and so long Zoom calls, and I know that by the end of it, a lot of people would get emotional about Shahid because I mean they loved him so much. So, but I remember this one interview I did with Izhar where he talks about the poem "The Whale Suite," and he was just baffled how Shahid could write that poem at a stage where um, he couldn't even read, and he had started losing his senses and all of that stuff, and yeah, it was quite something to talk to these people and sort of understand Shahid, and yeah, it was yeah yeah that was
Got it.
yeah.
Is there also, you think, anything that I might have missed and you would like to address right now about Agha Shahid Ali, his works, or something that you must have included in the book to the
Oh,
audience that's watching?
there are so many things, but I think as a poet, and so I've been working on the preface for this book. The one that we have right now is the Indian subcontinent, the edition for the Indian subcontinent, and the global edition will be released next year. So I have to write a preface for that. So a couple of things that I think I sort of realized when I look back at the book at the time I was writing the preface were that I think Shahid was a poet who was beyond all designations that he was a Kashmiri American at this, at that. He was essentially a poet of the language, right? And that's I think one of the most important things because uh, I think somewhere he'd said that first and foremost, I'm a poet of the English language. I think that his dedication to poetry, his dedication to language, I think that was one of the most brilliant things that I sort of discovered through Shahid. And I think as a subject to sort of understand these aspects about writers, being a writer myself, like some of these things were really interesting. And I mean, I've learned so much from Shahid just by reading his life and trying to make sense of the life that he'd lived. And I think ultimately, like the readers of this book will go back to his poetry, and that's been my main motive with this book. That it was never to go beyond Shahid; it was to go back to the verses as perhaps more conversant readers. But yeah, so I think that aspect, how he reworked things was it was just brilliant. His dedication to his art, which is very rare. I think the
Yeah.
only one I can think of who did that was perhaps Begum Akhtar, who again Shahid was, you know,
Yeah. Do
friends
you
with.
also
And
think that perhaps um, so we've read The Country Without the Post Office, right? Do you think most of his works get lost because he's recognized as a poet who writes for Kashmir or about Kashmir?
no, not really, because if you look at a lot of his poems, I mean, even after The Country Without a Post Office, he sort of talks about Kashmir again and again.
Right.
But and I mean, as readers from the Indian subcontinent, I mean, I don't see why like people would not read about Kashmir. But there are so many different elements to his poetry. The way he talks about grief, nostalgia, like just
Do
these
you
things.
think
And
we forget to talk about those elements, grief, nostalgia, like you said? There's this longing for a place as well, but we
right,
kind of come back to the whole topic of Kashmir because he's.
yeah,
I read a lot of articles and he was called a partition poet or
okay,
a Kashmiri poet, and all these,
right,
all the essence of his poetry, the elements that you were mentioning, nostalgia, despair,
right,
longing, grief, etc., they get lost somewhere.
right. Um, I think Shahid was one of the foremost poets in the English language from Kashmir. So naturally, and I mean, today his name has sort of become synonymous with Kashmir, right? So naturally, Kashmir comes to the forefront. But Shahid at once, I think, said that there were two acts which were sort of central to his poetry. One was the act of witnessing, of bearing the witness, and the second one was that of being the beloved.
Oh,
So I mean, I think that it's while Kashmir, like his poetry about Kashmir and all that he's said about Kashmir, and I mean, the fact that it's still relevant to an extent where I mean, we're still reading Shahid's poetry to sort of understand Kashmir, and it's influenced like generations of writers and poets from not just Kashmir but all around the world. I think it's important, but again, there's so much more that Shahid explores, especially in a collection like Rooms Are Never Finished, where he's dealing with his mother's death and he's trying to make sense of it, of a world without her. I think that's really important because I think in that collection, when he mentions Kashmir, there's a change in the way he talks about Kashmir, because
right.
then it's not become like it's not a lost homeland anymore. It's sort of this measure for loss, right? Like so the way that I think the how Kashmir sort of progresses through his poetry is also quite interesting to sort of see, because it turns from a homeland in the half inch Himalayas to a lost homeland, and eventually a measure for grief that he sort
True.
of like uses in a lot of poems. But yeah, that's. But I hope that people are able to recognize all these different facets, because and even the light verse that comes through in a walk through the yellow pages.
Yeah.
I think that
I
those are
think
some
I
brilliant
have
poems.
to
Yeah,
give you credit there. I was struggling. A walk through Yellow Pages was one of my favorite reads, and I just couldn't understand what it is about. And then I read your book, and I realized, oh, it was just
right.
random AT&T. But yeah, thank you so much for that. But before we go, I also want to, because we're a recommendation channel, I want to ask you a couple of take your recommendations. So
Okay.
I'll start with books. So we do a
Okay.
book a month. If you were to help us or recommend us with three books that you think we should pick up for a book a month in 2022, what would those be?
Three books. Okay. Do these have to be books from 2021, or
No,
they
no,
can be
no.
any books?
Any books.
All right. So I think the first one obviously would have to be Austerlitz by W.G. Sebald. That's one of the books that book I return to, I think, every couple of months. It's so beautiful, and it's one of those books where certain lines and certain paragraphs sort of accrue new meaning every time you read them, and I find myself returning to that book again and again. So
Yeah.
that would be one. The second book, and one that I read recently, was Abdul Razak Gundra's By the Sea. It was he's a master at what he does, and it's such a beautiful book, such wonderful paragraphs and sentences there, and the way he talks about certain things, it's brilliant. The third would have to be um, uh, okay, Olga Tokarczuk. She wrote a book called Flights, which is
Yeah.
it's a really difficult book to sort of talk about. I mean, is it fiction? Is it not? Like, I mean, what is it really? It's one of the best books I've read in a very long time. So I think that could be the third one. Yeah,
Yeah, the flights almost made it to a book a month in 2021, but nobody
all right,
voted
okay,
for it on Instagram, so we'll be
right,
picking it up in 2022.
right. Lights is brilliant. It's one of
Yeah,
the best books I've read in a long time. Yeah.
true. And what were the top three films that you saw in 2021 that you would like to recommend to people?
Top three. Um,
It can even be five.
yeah.
That's entirely up to
Okay.
you.
All right. Okay. So a lot of movies actually. I think I watch more movies than I read books in
Okay.
a calendar year. But uh, I think Come On was a really good film. Um, then Drive My Car, which is based on a story by Murakami. It was a brilliant film.
Okay.
I absolutely loved that. Um, The Lighthouse. It didn't come out in 2021, but I watched it recently, so that was a really good film. I think Robert Pattinson and William Dafoe did brilliant roles, and it's an instant sort of classic film, right? And what else? There's a movie called Azor. Then there's Emma, obviously, and a portrait of a lady on fire. Uh, I can go on and on, but yeah, I think that's that's more than enough. I think.
And was there also some music that you discovered in 2021 that you'd like to recommend to people?
Yeah. As for music, so I usually end up going back to jazz. That is the genre I listen to most. So um, I recently got, I think, my Spotify, top artist of the year or whatever, right? So yeah, I think I listened the most to this person called Takuya Kuroda. He's a Japanese American trumpet player, and he has three albums. All of them are brilliant. Then there's Kamasi Washington. He's really good. Then there's Mark Juliana. He's again a jazz musician from New York. He's really good. From India, yeah. So from India, like I mean, obviously, I've been listening to a lot of Peter Cat Recording Company. They're I think one of the best bands in the country right now. There's Dot.
Yeah.
She is really good. I think she has one of those voices which is very rare. And there's Ditty, who came out with an album called Poetry Salon, which is a beautiful work of music. Yeah.
Nice.
So I think that's yeah, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, to cover
Do,
it.
yeah. Is there anything that you'd like to recommend that I might have missed? Anything else apart from books, music, movies?
I mean, I think these three are like I think the only like sort of things that I can think of.
Good.
But yeah, yeah. Like I mean, I can talk about more books and movies and music and go on and on if that's
That's
no.
nice.
Yeah, it's not to. Yeah.
But this is so nice, Manan. Thank you so much for joining us. I'd also like to ask you if, in case I missed asking you anything, and in case you'd like to talk about something. Uh,
Mm, not really. I think we've covered everything unless like there's something specific that someone would like to ask or someone who was in the book club. I was
yeah,
um
I'll just quickly go back to. I think someone had just made a comment about the whale suite. This is Pranav. He said it's probably one of the best poems I've ever read. And the
right,
way he talks about his vulnerabilities and how he wrestles with the idea of death is
right.
something that perhaps really drove him.
Yeah, and I mean that poem is something which I've been reading for like what, like 6 years now. And even when I go back to that poem now, it changes completely. It's one of those poems that really grows with you. So, even if people couldn't read the entire collection, the collected works, Whale Suite, in 1 month, I think it's something that you sort of continue reading and like,
Yeah.
you go back to it again and again. And the Whale Suite is one of the poems that really grows with you. So uh,
I think
it's
the first poem that I read in the collection was Language Games, and I
true.
keep on going
Yeah.
back to it. I mean,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
something I read almost every 2 to 3 days.
It's
language
that
skills.
that's I think the beauty of poetry, that it comes back to you to at certain moments. It's this one poem by W.S. Morgan called James, where he talks about his friend's death. It's like 4 lines, but there are so many times when I go back to that poem because it just comes back to you, and at times it changes meaning and grows. And I mean, it's a beautiful thing to hold on to. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But thank you so much, Manan. I hope we can have you again on the channel. And thank you so much for joining us. I'll also be revealing the book for the month of 2022. I'll send you the name separately, and perhaps in case you like it, you can pick it up and join us for January 2022.
All right, I look forward to that, and thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure talking about Shahid and the Wheel Suite, and I'm glad that it was the book of the month, and that people are still reading his works. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Thank
That's
you
so
so much.
nice.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, Manan. Have a good evening.
You too.
Hi, guys. Um, so this was fun, and do like the stream. Akash is doing God's work. The more you like the stream, the more it gets recommended to people. It was really nice talking to Manan. He's written this wonderful book called A Map of Longings, and in case I was struggling with Agha Shahid Ali's works sometime, like when I started reading it, I struggled with a few poems. And had it not been for this book, I don't think I would have been able to understand the meaning or understand the source of those or the references that those poems covered. But hey Shreya, we can definitely hey Shreya, we can definitely do a fantasy sci-fi book like Wheel of Time in the new year. Not sure about 2022 because I've already picked up the book now. Hey, Ishan is also here. Hi, hi. It's so good to see Manan on CCT. I hope we can have him again. I hope I didn't creep him out enough. I hope. I mean, I'm just a little overwhelmed, guys. We've read 14 books by now, and I hope a lot of you are looking forward to a book a month in 2022 as well, because I'm very excited for it. So, as I think all of you must pick up a map of longings, if at least you've picked up the Whale Suite, because the Whale Suite is beautiful. It's very beautiful. I think in case you missed a book a month 2021's ranking, the video, please watch it. I've ranked the Whale Suite on number 1. There goes your spoiler, but the Whale Suite is wonderful. I keep on going back to it, and I think it's one of the BC to AD events that Vaibhav talks about. I think reading Agha Shahid Ali changed me in a way that I'm yet to discover. But in case you'd like to discover Agha Shahid Ali and understand his works, his life better, you must definitely pick up A Map of Longings by Manan Kapoor, the life and works of Agha Shahid Ali. And I think you would understand so much about him. And well, if there is one passage that I must read out to you, is the one I was talking to Vaibhav in the last stream, where he talks about his Eliot's influence on Agha Shahid Ali. And well, there's that. I won't go in details because I think I speak a lot about it in the previous streams. But this has been fun, guys. Thank you so much for joining. I'll shortly be revealing the book for the month of January 2022. Very excited about it. Okay. Wasim, this has to be one of my favorite ghazals, and that's because of this line, "Call me Ishmael tonight." I mean, I'm not going there, just always. I mean, I think there was this intimacy of thought while reading Agha Shahid Ali. I mean, of course, he is no longer with us, and perhaps he's writing to us from across years. But I think perhaps the topics he chose, the themes that he picked up, the themes that were common across his poetry, was something that was very intimate and something that just made me go back to reading him again and again and recommend him to every individual I know. But for 2022, guys, hey Raz, I hope you're doing well. It's nice to see you as well. But anyways, for 2022, of course, I mean, sometimes I just feel bad that you guys don't notice we do a healthy mix of fiction, non-fiction. It's just we don't go for like downright self-help books, as they are called. So you are not able to see the non-fiction. But anyways, for 2022, there are a few things that we're going to do. A book a month. Sometimes we'll have guests who will also recommend their favorite reads. Let me know if you're excited about that. Let me know who you'd like to be a part of a book a month, so we can have their recommendations and them for the discussions. That's one. Second, so that means for some books, some months, there'll be 2 books that you'll have to read. The second thing is I will also try to post at least 1 piece of poetry each week, not my writing, but like something that I like, on our Instagram, on my Instagram, etc. And so do follow us on Instagram, and I'll be posting about at least 1 piece of poetry each week. And in case you are a patron, let's just get more active. And in case you're a gladiator or a godfather, I will also be hosting regular monthly Zoom call sessions, where we'll be talking about a book a month, the book for the month. We'll be talking about different aspects of poetry, etc., whatever you like. We can bring our own books, etc. It'll be a BYOB event, bring your own book. And mind you guys, this is the first time this term has been used, so we're going to copyright it right now, even though it's not, we're not doing it the right way. But Pranav has commented, Agha Shahid became a doorway for me into this wonderful world of poetry, so thank you for recommending his works. Hey, I don't know why, for some reason I've started, I was so happy we picked up Deborah Levy, Cost of Living. We picked up On Earth We Are Briefly Gorgeous. We picked up Agha Shahid, and the last 3 books they just made me so happy. And then I was even happier to realize the response that you guys had been giving. But hey, Pokrash, thank you so much. So now I'm going to reveal the book for the month of January. Guys, do make a guess. I don't know how to what are your tips? Okay, cool. So I'm going to reveal, I'll just make a proper fine cut for the editor when he does it later. So okay, so I'm going to reveal the book for the month of January, a book a month, January 2022 now. And the reason why I'm picking it up is, of course, it's a wonderful book, but also I wanted to pick it up for one of the months, for one of the a book a month in 2021, but I did not, because I was slightly conscious. But I read out a passage in one of the streams, and people picked the book up actually, and I got such wonderful response that I thought perhaps, okay, we can try picking it up and let's start January with it. A lot of people have been asking for non-fiction, and a few people wanted more of fiction, and there were some people who wanted classics, etc. So I thought we could kind of touch every bit, we could touch every possible piece of literature with this book. And I've read it in parts, and I've covered half of the book. And until now, it has been a wonderful read. And I think everyone should read it. If I could, I'd make dedicated videos and streams on it, but I didn't do that. So I think it's only right we pick it up for January 2022, a book a month. And so yeah, people are already drum rolling. That's really nice. Thank you guys. Drum rolls. It's The Lonely City by Olivia Lang. And I have a weird piece of bookmark. But I'll start with the first chapter, and I think I've already read it, but I'll read it again. It's called The Lonely City by Olivia Lang. And I'll give you the background. When Olivia Lang moved to New York City, she started feeling lonely on a daily basis. At first, it was a very embarrassing feeling because nobody has taught us to be comfortable with feeling lonely, right? So she grew fascinated by it, and she started exploring the New York City, this lonely city, by ways of art and culture. So through this book, she covers the lives of various artists, and through that she answers some questions like, what does it mean to be lonely? How do we live if we are not intimately engaged with another human being? How do we connect with other people? And she discusses along this the works of famous artists who came out of the New York City. And I'll pick up the first chapter, which is called The Lonely City. And it says, imagine standing by a window at night on the 6th or 17th or 43rd floor of a building. The city reveals itself as a set of cells, 100,000 windows, some darkened and some flooded with green or white or golden light. Inside, strangers swim to and fro, attending to the business of their private hours. You can see them, but you can't reach them. And so this commonplace urban phenomena, available in any city of the world on any night, conveys to even the most social a tremor of loneliness. Its uneasy combination of separation and exposure. You can be lonely anywhere, but there is a particular flavor to the loneliness that comes from living in a city, surrounded by millions of people. You can be lonely anywhere, but there is a particular flavor to the loneliness that comes from living in a city surrounded by millions of people. One might think this state was antithetical to urban living, to the massed presence of other human beings, yet mere physical proximity is not enough to dispel a sense of internal isolation. It's possible, easy even, to feel desolate and unfrequented in oneself while living cheek by Cities can be lonely places. And in admitting this, we see that loneliness doesn't necessarily require physical solitude, but rather an absence or paucity of connection, closeness, kinship, an inability for one reason or another to find as much intimacy as is desired. Unhappy, as the dictionary has it, as a result of being without the companionship of others. Hardly any wonder then that it can reach its apotheosis in a crowd. So, this is one of my favorite picks from 2021, and I only read half of it, so I thought we could read it together in 2022. Also, I'd read this particular line. What does it mean to be lonely? How do we live if we are not intimately engaged with another human being? How do we connect with other people, particularly if we don't find speaking easy? Is sex a cure for loneliness? And if it is, what happens if our body or sexuality is considered deviant or damaged, if we are ill or unblessed with beauty? And is technology helping with these things? Does it draw us closer or trap us behind scenes? And there are some different passages that just drive you crazy, and they show you that perhaps loneliness isn't half as bad as we are told it is. And perhaps this is something that we should not be embarrassed by. This is something we can talk about openly in public. So this is the book for the month of January 2022. And I'm so glad. Wait, I'll give a nice better shot for I just don't know. But in any case, this is the book for January. And hey, I had a feeling you'd pick it up because you've talked about it quite a few many times. Hey, Razia. They just wishlisted it. Perhaps this is the time you should get it from our Amazon affiliate link. Akash has just posted about this. So, I have this movie. Okay, Eternity and a Day by Theo. I love this. This is a poet of sugar. Hey, Pranav, thank you so much. This is a nice recommendation. So, what do you guys think of? What do you guys think of this book, The Lonely City? Uh, and I am pretty much interested by it. And Arjun Singh says loneliness is bad, it's an unwanted emotion, solitude is good. Yeah, but then in this book, she talks about why loneliness is necessary. And even if this is an unwanted emotion, this is an emotion you can't avoid. I mean, I don't want to be angry, but then I get angry, and that's an unwanted emotion, but then it's a necessary emotion. Hi, Jatin, how are you? Someone just called me chubby on the stream. Is it? Thanks, Vocally Rising. I am getting chubbier. Is that bad? You just made me conscious. Is that? I mean, I don't know. What am I supposed to do? Okay, thanks. I don't know how to pronounce your name, Magic Carp. But well, guys, this is our pick for. I'm just distracted after Vocally Rising called me chubby, getting chubbier by the day. Well, I've been eating a lot. That's good. That's good for health. But yeah, well, this is the book that we are picking up, and someone is saying that shouldn't we be going into? I think this. I mean, that's entirely up to you, but I mean, it's entirely up to you if you want to go ahead with. I mean, I think everyone finds their motivation themselves. It's not necessary that someone has to bring it to you in in the form of a self-help book. There are different things that you'll learn about various people in this book. There are different artists that you'll discover in this book, and you'll be discussing the best directors, painters, writers, authors, photographers, and I think that's a blessing in itself. But it's entirely up to you where you seek your motivation from. And I think The Lonely City is a lovely way, and as the headline says, Adventures in the Art of Being Alone. I think Olivia Lang. Oh, also, guys, if you want to see Olivia Lang's bookshelf tour, I think, or library tour, or house tour, whatever, it's available on YouTube. You can check it out. I think The Lonely City will change the way you look at. I mean, so far it has changed the way I look at solitude, loneliness, and how I want to create art, and how I want to interact with people around me. And it has a lot to say about the book, because I think it's one of the most beautiful pieces I've read in the recent history. And I hope you guys will pick it up. And thank you for joining A Book a Month. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Tomorrow, Vaibhav and I will be doing a Friday stream, so do check us out there. Vocally Rising says, sorry for making you conscious, but I meant it in a good, pretty way. So we can eat as much as Nutella as we'd like, and it's okay, right? And yeah, I'm just reading the comments. 2022 is gotta be lonely. No, not as long as you're a member of the book club. Do become a patron and do read along for A Book a Month, and you won't be lonely. We'll be discussing books every Thursday, and we'll be reading together and whatnot, and you'll never be lonely. I think a lot of you will shift perspectives once you read The Lonely City. Your definitions of being lone, not definitions, but your thoughts about loneliness, being alone, and solitude will change. But that is if you trust the book and give it a try. But I hope you pick it up. And it is available on Amazon, and you guys can check out the affiliate link that Akash has shared in the comments below. And it's also in the description, so that's amazing. And okay. Pranav resonates my thoughts, so I don't want to be partial there, but yeah. Anyways, I want to talk to you once more about the book that we read in December. We read 2 books. I read 3 as part of the homework. We read The Little Prince, which is absolutely amazing, but we also read The Whale Suite, which is the collected poems of Agha Shahid. If you haven't picked it up already, and you want to understand the culture of the Indian subcontinent, etc., 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 if you just want to get into the beautiful writing that has come out of the Indian subcontinent, you should pick it up. I've read The Language Games. I read Beyond the Ashraens. I've read Stationery. I've read a lot of poems in the streams before, and I think I've tried to push everyone to pick it up, and this is my last try for you guys to make you guys pick up The Whale Suite. In case you find it a little difficult, pick up A Map of Longings by Manan Kapoor. It's also in the description box, I guess. And it will help you understand Agha Shahid and his works, and it'll change the way you read poetry, perhaps forever. So there's that. And for December, we're reading The Lonely City. So, well, guys, I'll see you in the last week of January for the discussion of The Lonely City. And I'll see you next Thursday about the book again. So do get your copies by then, and I'll see you guys next week. And perhaps I'll become chubbier by then. Yep. I'm happy how you guys are receiving the book. It's nice. And we also had the author of A Map of Longings, Manan Kapoor, on the stream. Let us know if you guys would like to have him back to discuss the book of poetry, etc. It would be really nice to have him. And I'll see you guys again next week. And thank you so much for joining, guys. Do pick up The Lonely City, and do join us for a book a month in 2022. This has been amazing. 2021 has been amazing. But let's just get to more serious reading in 2022. And I'll see you guys next Thursday. But before I go, I'm going to read another comment. It's by Dyuk Bora. The Little Prince, Map of Longings, and The Whale Suite. My December was very soothing and happy. Hey, this is nice. Hey Pratham, can I start with Lonely City? I am new to fiction. It's not a fiction. It's actually a non-fiction book. But in case you do not like non-fiction, you'll still like it. And in case you like non-fiction, you like it anyway. But I mean, just trust me with this once. This will introduce you to a lot of new artists, and this will actually make you feel comfortable with being lonely, with being alone, and loving your own company. But this will be amazing. The Amazon affiliate link is in the description below. Do purchase it through that link, and I'll see you guys next week. Do like the stream. The more you like the stream, the more it gets recommended to people. And I'll be back with a recommendation episode, a stream soon. Have a good night, guys.